And there's always that lag between when it says streaming live in the corner and the amount of time it takes for YouTube to connect. But that should be fine. Should be okay. It's no problems at all. Here we go. We're actually going live right now. Welcome, Mitch Cammage Coaching. There's Matt and there's Paul riding shotgun with me as well. And we are at the Virtual Business Box Lunch Year in Review 6-month edition at the end of June. And of course, I am your host, the Savage in Business, Mitch Cammage from Mitch Cammage Coaching. Matt, Paul, as always, it's good to see you guys there. And today we're going to do something a little bit different than normal. Normally bring in a studio audience. We pick some subjects. We get everybody's opinion because they're business owners just like you. And of course, past being business owners just like you. And I'm doing some stuff on YouTube here now. So, bear with me while I just sit there and look over everybody's digital shoulder and do some other stuff while I'm getting us set up and ready to go officially right now online. But today it's going to be just our team in-house, and we want our audience to come and join us live on YouTube. Feel free to ask questions, do those other wonderful things that we do as well. But past that, to be able to participate from there for the very first time instead of in the audience. Why? I just want a very close set of opinions today on some stuff, and more importantly, some really great insight for everybody else to be able to take away going in the future. So now I'm clicking save. I made sure we had this thing is all set up and good to go. There's our Virtual Business Box Lunch. We're done with that. I copy this link. I paste it into one place, and then we get out of here. All right. And we'll be good to go in 3, 2, 1. Link is sent. Link is saved. Hey, Syndicate peeps, if anybody's coming to join us here right now while we're live, you're sitting there. For anybody else in our audience, do not hesitate to comment, click, say something, shout out, do whatever it needs to be, because we are happy to be able to take engagement and interaction from you, of course. And the biggest reason that we're here is because we are here just to be able to serve your guys' business needs. So year in review, 6-month edition. What does that mean? We are halfway through the year. We're at the end of June. Next week, by the way, we're also going to be on hiatus for 1 week. So watch for us coming back in 2 weeks' time as well. I know this is definitely not made for kids, YouTube. Definitely not made for kids, because bad words will come out occasionally while we're talking about business, because business and life are just like that. But for us, it's the year in review, because the 16 months now since the pandemic all began for us, once again, not medical, not political, this is about business here, changed an awful lot of the landscape of what's going on. And amongst all the other friction and all the other horror, uncertainty, and everything else, some really cool stuff happened in business. Now, this stuff has global perspective, global reach, but it has a very personal and local ability to impact and change your life. So we're going to toss some things out there. I'm going to get Paul and Matt to put their 2 cents worth in. And we're going to have 2 different things. We're going to have innovations that happen in business itself and look at the way it can affect or touch on you from a personal perspective. And then we've got some things that are changes in the way business is done. So I'm hoping we can get through this entire list. If not, hey, maybe we'll come back for round 2, part 2 of this. But we're going to dive in right now, and we're going to get the heaviest one out of the way at the very beginning: drug development and drug therapy for COVID treatment. Now, we hear this term all the time. So you're going, oh, yeah, you didn't want to add medical or political to this. No, not medical or political. We've heard the term, and it's been rammed down our throats repeatedly for the last 12 months, in particular since October: mRNA. You realize that COVID, what mRNA means is that they're not rewriting your DNA, right? No, only 30% of the population, Paul, I see your conspiracy brain turning right now. 30% of the Canadian population right now, because they haven't had the vaccine yet, are still the only real humans left on Earth. That's not what it means. mRNA means that they are using DNA mapping, and that they're using technology, the process, to be able to structure something that fights disease or illness in a very specific way. They're tailoring for the very first time. The way vaccines have worked up until now, all this other time, is to take a tiny bit of the cure, a tiny bit of the disease, combine it together, give it to you, and say, body, do your thing. mRNA means for the very first time, they're using technology to hardwire something to do something else. In other words, hardwire the cure or the therapy or the immunization or the bridge treatment right now against COVID, while we're all fighting against it right now, to do something really cool. This is advancement in biomedicine, DNA work, and of course, just being able to specifically tailor things to do other things. It's enormously important, because we've heard about nanotechnology, nanoparticles, et cetera, but mRNA, this is the very first time it's being deployed anywhere, and it's being used, right or wrong, good or evil, conspiracy theorists. The government has our backs. Doesn't matter what it is, to fight COVID. The very first place it's being deployed. That is cool to watch. It is frightening, it is daunting, it is cool to watch, but it affects us right here. Why? Because you've either had a vaccine or you've not. You've got fully vaccinated, went off and got your 2 shots of whatever, this company, that company, whatever it is. So guys, opinions about that, because regardless of implication, morality for a moment, we're seeing innovation in medicine that was theory 24 months ago being deployed in practice against a pandemic. Thoughts, opinions, comments?
I'm going to jump in real quick. First, we need to clarify that Mitch is going to, like, we go in blind for this kind of stuff. So if this was a non-virtual box lunch, I'd be like, waiter, can I please have a scotch? Because this isn't light lifting for a Friday afternoon, but I love the question. So, you know, for me, it's this. My wife's in healthcare. She's double vaccinated. I've had 1 shot. My parents are all in, all those things. Am I a believer? I don't really know, to tell you the truth. I've been a bubble boy in my youth and adolescence. So like I've been heavily medicated for years, I guess you would say, right? So I shy away from it most of the time. But realistically for me, and you've heard me say this before, I just want to get back to work, right? So at this point, it's not like led sheep. It's more of a, let's just do what we got to do in order to get us back to where we need to get to. So really there's so much thinking process there, but again, I need to kind of filter myself. And I know that this definitely has been clicked not for kids, but I'm not here to start or end a conspiracy. It's just simply allow me to not have this virtual background, allow me to shake your guys' hands for the first time in, you know, almost 2 years. That's really my main focus. And it's curious to see how divided, yeah, again, like this is the world of today. There's only polar opposites. There is no middle anymore, right? So I'm curious to see how it all evolves. And, you know, I have close friends that are certainly not, you know, in agreement too. And I have, again, other family members that are like, no, this is the only way. So it's, I just want to get back to the real world. I enjoy these virtual meetings, but again, I want to hear, you know, glass breaking in the background, and I want to hear clinking of glasses and all those things. So whatever it takes, let's just get to it.
Paul?
Well, if you want to take a look at some mRNA and start to dabble or look into it to get some information, interesting series on Netflix is called Unnatural Selection. And it'll actually dive into that. You know, it's not only about science, there's politics that's involved, there's big business that's involved. So not even talking about COVID at the moment, we're talking about with new technologies that are coming out and what they're being able to develop. We're on the cusp of this. So there's a real fight. Do we keep this in the hands of politicians and big companies, or do we allow, you know, smaller firms or even ourselves to tinker in our garages, and what comes out of this? So there's a lot of, you know, there's 2 sides to it. What are they creating in these garages, and what are they injecting into themselves? Because you can buy this stuff on Amazon and start tinkering around with it right now. You know, we've heard of stem cells. We've heard of people that are putting stem cells, you know, harvesting your own stem cells and putting them back in for, you know, regeneration or partial regeneration of knees and shoulders, things like that. And, you know, as we go along, I think the landscape is going to be completely different in 5 years. This is the first time that something has come out. You know, this is a CRISPR for this vaccine, where they have these, you know, these structures that are put in for COVID. That's why everything has to be super cold to keep it stabilized for the injection. My concern, I have not been vaccinated. My concern is I'm a waiter and wait and see what happens. You know, and is there a change to it? Is there an effect? Is it too new? You know, does it actually help with the virus? And I think that there's too much information out there. There's too much disinformation out there, and I'm a wait. Let's see how the dust settles, and then I will proceed and move forward. If it works, I'll get the shot. If it doesn't, I'm not getting the shot.
Yeah,
And that's,
now,
that's the way that
Yeah.
I'm wired, right? I am not the first one through the door. I will wait back and see how it all plays out.
can we agree then? Can we three meet and agree that this is where we're seeing the first real intersection of the home 3D printer generation, the home medical generation, the do it yourself, and the fact that the fracturing of the regular infrastructure in business, which means everybody's just a microcosm, everybody's another contractor, that even something as both as simple and as complex as medicine and making the decision yourself can literally be handled in your own home. We've ordered everything else the last 16 months. Now you can order you. Yeah, no.
It
Yeah.
just seems like it's a flattening. It's a flattening, everything used to be more of that pyramid shape or moving up on that side. And it's with technology and the way things are coming it's a flattening out of the landscape. It's nothing as much as centralized as it used to be. It's more, we're more compartmentalized now. So even if there is let's say there's an issue with electrical grid, or we had an issue with Rogers in Canada here. We were talking a little bit about this last night about cell phone coverage, where we could not use our phone. We could not call out. We could not receive calls, but there were other avenues for us to use. There was WhatsApp, so we could still communicate. So we easily adapt. It's not where everything is at one point now. We have other ways of still communicating. We have other ways of still doing business. And it's not really as much of that top down anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good thing.
Matt, final thought, and then we're going to bounce to the next subject.
I would just simply say this. Yeah, I think it's an interesting time to be alive, really, because like all the things that we would have seen in those sci-fi movies, and we're like, we'll never do that. We'll never be stupid enough to do that. Well, you know what? I would say, yeah, the masses aren't, but it just takes one. So I'm curious to see how it all breaks down. And again, like I order certain things on Amazon. I'm not going to order, so something that would be classified as medical grade, right? So I believe in natural selection to a point, and I think unfortunately in the world of today, you can create your own soapbox on a much grander scale, and we just need to be careful about who we're listening to.
All right. Subject 2, because we're right here, right now in the glowing box. Remote working video conferencing. Matt can't wait till he can hug all of us, but he's a bubble boy, right? Paul's armed to the teeth at his house waiting for the revolution to start. I'm somewhere in the middle. But yet this had a measured effect on what's going on. You've got Zoom, Teams, Google Hangouts, GoToMeeting, Blue Jeans by Verizon, and a pile of startups that came in as well. And we watched how many different jobs suddenly became not really that important if you show up in the office. Technology, love it or hate it, certainly started to make that trend and that push. Once again, did the pandemic cause that, or is this just where we were going? And it coalesced it, created that point where instead we were peaking to something, it created activation, right? So the technology side of things, has it been more beneficial, less beneficial for business? Right? And what do we expect going forward?
Yes, it's been beneficial because again, I couldn't imagine, we often hear it's been 100 years since, right? And there's been quite a few school videos that have gone out, they're the first set of students to go through a full pandemic in 100 and some years. And like, again, I wasn't there the last time, so I don't know what it looked like, but to me, I'm grateful that we're still able to do this, right? Because I think that socially there's going to be so much long-term effect. Like my kids, my grade oneer went to kindergarten for 90 days. And since then has only known really weird school in my version of school, right? But the mask is second nature to her, right? She doesn't know anything else. So like next year, if there is no masks, that's going to be more strange to her than what we're currently living through, right? So I believe that there's just so much availability and I continue with, again, like to me, I'm very much, hey, what does the nonverbal say? And if you're behind a mask and a face shield, it's super tough, right? So that's why I'm excited to get back into the real world, but why I've utilized this so much, because I don't want to be just on a phone call. I'm grateful that I'm able to see the two of you, right? Because I know when Mitch and I disagree, or when Paul and I disagree, or when Paul and Mitch disagree, because you can see it, right? So I'm grateful that we've had that opportunity, because I couldn't imagine being like truly locked up at home.
Paul?
I think I'm going to leverage technology a lot more. I do see the value in it. I do see how I'm able to get more done in a day. I have been out for a couple of meetings, and it is that travel time, and it doesn't, it's not efficiency on that. So I do see myself going to a hybrid of meeting people, maybe more in a group setting, or maybe once a week or twice a week, but I don't see myself getting away from technology. I see this being maybe the 80% and 20% outside on that side, because I just think I'm more productive being here, and it also allows me a little bit more downtime in my office to get the back end stuff completed as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we're through the first few, and if you guys haven't guessed it, because this is the trend in our marketplace right now, a lot of what I'm referring to for the year that was 6 months is technology driven, right? We're seeing an intersection of technology, but when I talk about at the beginning, premised it, so call it foreshadowing. We're talking about the way it had an effect on people too. You guys are obviously filtering through your own personal lens, your own personal opinion, which is part of what we talk about every week. This is what we saw. We are experts in our own right, but this is also what we're experiencing and feeling. Technology has had a market effect. Innovation we're watching as a market effect. Zoom was here before. Skype was here before. Google Hangouts was here before, right? I was having, what the precursor to Google Hangouts before meetings 6 years ago, and being able to make virtual calls and stuff like that, being able to talk to an entire team there. Yet this year has pushed that to the forefront, where now you're questioning expediency and efficiency. But more importantly, it's great to be able to come down here. I walked down here and I turned everything on 10 minutes before we got started. We're here now. When we're done in 35 minutes, 40 minutes, it'll turn off. We'll all walk away. And we can go to everything else. We can go to family. We can go to other things in business. We can go to other meetings, etc. We can flip the switch, turn off, and move to something else, which has both a good and a bad side to it, right? But we're able to do that. So number 3, contactless delivery. Who's used this in the last little bit to order food or stuff, right? If you're on YouTube, you can drop a chat. That's okay. You can drop a comment. Just say, yeah, of course I have, right? Lunch came to my house thanks to this thing. It did. Came to my house today thanks to this thing. Contactless delivery and shipping. And the fact that, so I'm going to push somebody under the bus right now. Any of the postal services we have in this world. Okay. I ordered something for my kid that's coming tonight. We ordered it yesterday. Ordered something this morning that's coming tomorrow. If I do the post office, it's going to show up in a week and I won't know where it is. If I use any of the contactless delivery services and the giant A to Z, all hail the mighty A to Z for shipping us all the useless crap we need in life. They damn near tell you the name of the driver, and they do tell you the name of the driver that's dropping your stuff off. What did that do? What has that done for business overall? Because if you haven't been paying attention, Amazon has an entire business side. To compete, Costco launched their own business centers where they only do stuff and drop ship and deliver to people, as well as having a physical location to fall in line with the Costco brand. Then Amazon has an entire business side where you can order everything under the sun for your business. Matt, I was in there the other day, and I mean, we've got clients moving forward for restaurant service. I can order restaurant crap through Amazon Business and have it delivered, which means even the old way of doing things. So we're talking contactless delivery. Great. I got lunch and I got new socks coming. Badass. Love it. But I also needed a brand new commercial coffee maker. I needed a commercial dishwasher. I needed a sanitizer. I needed a range. I needed a fire hood. I need a point of sale system. Grab the device and go shopping. They'll tell you when it's going to get delivered and how much it costs. Thoughts?
Well, yeah, like I'm literally in that as we speak, right? So, and there's been so many times where, at my age, I would be in a retail store going, oh, I wish I could see that chair in my living room. Well, fast forward to today, you have all of this augmented reality opportunity through like the IKEA catalog and some of these other providers where you take a picture of your room, you say, put this chair in it, and all of a sudden you're moving around within your screen. And it's incredible. Like I smirk every time I do it, but then I go, it's terrifying because all I'm doing is I'm now providing that app like a 3D rendering of my own house, right? Like I get both sides of it, right? But realistically, I have probably 4 microphones around me right now, right? So if they want the information, they have it. And if I was to say, hey, G, that word, something would pop up in the background because I have one of those speakers around, right? So I love it because again, Paul had mentioned the efficiency standpoint, right? Like all we have to do now in order to get to a new meeting is click the red button at the bottom right here and then hit start meeting again, right? I was never a fan of driving, and even more so now. Like I was out and about and it was rush hour and I was peaked. So we're going to need to kind of like manage that a bit for the people that are similar to me, that I'll be here and like Paul, probably 60 to 70% of the time. And this will be, I guess, my funnel, or the pipeline. And then once we have, kind of identified that there will be a relationship, then it's going to be again, a handshake and an in-person if that client is comfortable with it, right? But it's challenging for small business because like for myself, for some of my clients, it takes days for us to get an item or a product to them, right? Whereas they're like, oh, well, I can order this on Amazon for tomorrow. I'm like, yeah, you can, but are you still going to see the same cost savings overall? So if time is of the essence, again, like most people, most small businesses, even medium-sized businesses can't compete with A to Z, right? Because again, I, like you, ordered something yesterday and it's coming today. And like a major item, like it's not like it's just something small, right? It's like I personally can't compete with that, right?
Okay, Paul?
Time, money, information, or access to information. The consumer is getting smarter, getting wiser, and time is money. So you can see how they have developed from books, and they're just bringing that model out. Now they're going after the small business market. So it's kind of, it puts everybody it should put everybody on alert. Are you efficient? What are you doing? What can you do better? Is there a way that if they're going to swallow you up, that you can align with them in that part, especially for the delivery side of things? So again, it really is look at your environment, look at how things have been changing on that side, and how it's going to impact. So all of these little efficiencies, they just keep poking away at it, and taking more and more market share. Can you live within that environment? Sure, but you're going to have to find a way to do it.
All right. We're on to number 4. And of course, I got all my cheat sheet, my notes up here. Like Matt said early on, you might need scotch for this one too. Okay.
Perfect.
He's like, love this. Telehealth and telemedicine. 2 years ago, I remember having to call a doctor to wait for him to call me back to do something. 4 months later, I called the office. He called me back on his lunch break because that's when he was taking telemedicine clients. We did everything we would normally do face-to-face in 12 minutes. Now you can come on the almighty glowing screen, and I got a whole list of apps and stuff like that up here, right? Teladoc, Amwell, a bunch of other stuff. There's a whole bunch of startups. There's even AI integration to help with diagnoses, etc. All these different things that are coming on. Once again, if you can order your own stem cell kit at home, how quickly until we're ordering our own tricorder like Star Trek and Wander Self, and we go on. That's not good. Yeah, Matt's pointing to his watch right now. New generation of the Apple iWatch maps your heartbeat, your heart rate, your air volume levels, etc., It can tell when you're having cardiac and respiratory issues, all sorts of other stuff, and you can sync it so that it will sync with your health system depending on where country you live in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, telehealth, telemedicine, here to stay, passing trend, or just part of the new normal, which is really just normal now, because we've had long enough to adapt to get rid of that word new. And I thought Matt would like that one too. Telemedicine, it's the trend right now. Well, here's a stat for a moment before you guys start to comment. There was a study done in late 2019 that they expected 70 million Americans would use telehealth by 2020. There was a study done at the end of 2020 by a research firm in the US that expected in early 2021, the number of American virtual care visits would be 1 billion. So, boys, what you got?
Do you like going to the doctor and sitting there for an hour, hour and a half in order to get treated for something that would take 5 minutes, or is 5 minutes in the room with them? Or I don't. I think this is fantastic. I think more men will actually probably take advantage of it because it'll be like, yeah, it's booked, it's in, got what I needed, and I'm gone. It's kind of like shopping. Go in, grab, go. So I love it. I think it's fantastic. And technology, I mean, everything will be tracked on here, you know, and I think it also gives us a little bit more understanding and control of our own health if we choose, rather than being a little bit more in the dark about our own health. So, you know, I think it's a good thing. And I think as we go forward, it's going to be fantastic. I mean, just look at what they're doing with diabetes, right? They've got One Touch and Dexcom. So you can actually have a monitor and you don't have to prick your finger anymore. So, you know, these are probably, these are going to evolve as it goes. So it's only going to get better and better.
Mm-hmm. Matt, thoughts?
Yeah, so specifically medicine, difficult because again, we only share so much. And Paul, you highlighted, you know, I subscribe, men will utilize that more because the last thing we would want to do is open that. And it's so funny because doctors' office doors were always like the heaviest doors, right? And you're like, see, this is effort. It's like, I don't want to be here. Why are they always heavy doors, right? So, and yeah, like I would just rather type it up. Now, you know, Dr. Google is on the other side though, right? Because you can have those individuals that are like, you know, my mom has prostate cancer or my cousin has this or whatever it may be. You're like, actually, no, like you still need to go to a professional. But I pointed out my watch because it's been amazing as a tool and as an asset for health, wellness, mentally, physically. And it's been great. It's terrifying because it knows, you know, my heart rate is sometimes outside of normal parameters. And the Breathe app or the Calm app pops up, hey, we think it's time for you to breathe, right? So it's like, oh, that's very interesting. So, but
is it telling you to breathe right now?
And actually, every time I sit down at 11:55 on Friday, they're like, Matt, just breathe. No, but there's such a tremendous opportunity with it. But again, no different than any other form of technology. It's, you know, when it's used for good, it's great. But if someone turns to the dark side, then you know, there's going to be some terrible things that could happen. But no, telemedicine, I believe, is great because, again, I'm the type of individual that is very last minute. I'll limp on a sore knee for weeks at a time or like a super sore tooth. So if you can just call up saying, hey, what can I do? Right. And in the world of today where they overprescribe, they're like, oh, take this. And you just go pick it up at the pharmacy. At least it saves you all that other interaction. Right. And again, like at least if you can somewhat help the symptom or you know, then you may be masking it a little bit, but I believe it's a great benefit to us right now. Again, especially since we were locked down, not my age group, but more, you know, baby boomer, you know, for them to be able to have access, I think is fantastic.
I'm going to finish up by saying that with the advent, we go to the first one, mRNA vaccine. Okay. And again, disclosure, I did go get my vaccines. But you know what I'm not good at? So we talk about efficiency. We talk about paperwork, getting all that information. And if you're sensing a trend here, it's not just about technology. It's about efficiency and about having good craftsmanship over your time. over where you are, what you're doing at any given moment, and then be able to focus or do the things that are needed to do and be able to put everything away, right? I think we could agree technology, the device, and everything else we're seeing up until now, when you add these different elements, yes, it's speeding up our whole lives, but it's speeding up those aspects of life that would normally become sinkholes, stopgaps, things that would slow us down. Why I say this out loud is because I left the first one where they hand you the piece of paper saying you had your first one, bring this to the second one, like it's the 1960s and 1970s. Having registered for the second shot, it says bring this thing with you. What did I do? I logged into my health app with Alberta Health Services. And what's right there? My immunization record. And when I walked in the room to verify everything that was going on as well, what did I get? I got the download of the little QR code. I walk in, the nurse scans it. She goes, do you have yours? I flip up the copy of my digital immunization record. She goes, good, we're good to go. Right? So that sped things up as well. And when we look at what we just had happen and the topic we just had, which was telehealth, it even sped up the moment when I had to be there. Go get stuck in the arm. I was there. But now I waited my required 15 minutes before I left because they want to make sure nothing weird happens or you don't get superpowers or you don't drop dead or whatever else it is, right? Listen to your doctors and nurses, kids. They know better. But I was there for 2 minutes. I walked up. I talked to the pharmacist, said, wait here. I stood around for 2 minutes. The door opened. The nurse said, are you Mitch? Yeah. I walked in. She scanned. She did the thing. I sat down. Boop. Here you go. Done, gone. Wait outside for 15 minutes. Stood around for 15 minutes doing what? Playing on my phone. And then off we went. So that even sped up the one time I had to have a human interaction for something like this as well. So number 5, online learning. Online learning. Matt, you alluded to it early on. Online learning and e-learning became a significant part of the education system, but became a significant part of business. And that is our bread and butter. We're like this all day, every day, talking to people. But this really started to change because we had how many? We had Udemy and other online programs. You can launch a course for yourself on Kajabi and on Teachable. You can run entire courses and programs. There's an entire system called Quantic, which was launched by the Department of Education out of Washington. And they started to run university courses. You can get your virtual MBA and stuff like that through Quantic software, through the university and things like that. So all these people started to build these bridges. E-education. Guys, thoughts?
Well, you go first. I have to gather my thoughts here.
I love it. I think it broadens horizons, right? You now have way more available to you. I'm thinking that the education system needs a little bit of an overhaul. So, not only the basics, but interests. What are kids interested in? They're going to pay attention to what they're interested in rather than having them sit there. And if there's going to be some home learning involved, you got to make sure that they're in front of the screen. So that duty can fall on parents. So I think if you ignite that interest and that curiosity, they're going to pay attention, and you can still get the same basic principles across on things that they're interested in. So I think that market's really going to open up and expand, and we might see more outside contracting, coming in for different courses and that. That would be on the schooling side. On the business side, it's fantastic, right? I think there's definitely been an adjustment. I was interested to see how a Tony Robbins event would occur online compared to being live. I have been to the live events, and I think he was able to pull it off, because going live, there's a way more interaction and everything that's going on. I don't think he'll go away from that, but I think it forced a lot of people's hands in business to do things virtually and not personally, and see that it can still be done, and still have the impact on that side. So yeah, it was very cool. So yeah, I think it goes back to my business. I think it goes back to Matt's and yours, Mitch. I think it's going to be, we're going to be living in both, and maybe I'm thinking it's going to be more towards the digital and less towards the personal.
Matt, thoughts?
Yes. So I subscribe to it. Now, again, my thinking is, if you've ever listened to a podcast or downloaded an ebook over the last decade, you're already in digital learning, right? So like, to me, every podcast I listen to is a learning opportunity, right? So, so we've all been there. It just hasn't been in like the organized school setting, right? Whether or not it's, in grade school, post-secondary, whatever. So as a parent, having to kind of live through the digital classroom, I don't actually love either in the world of today, because again, I'm a firm believer early on, it's more about the social setting. So I want them to be in the real world, but the real world is so contained right now that you're only able to interact with the people that you're at with the table or the desk with, and this and that. It's only right. So it's both deficient, but both see their benefits, right? So I love online learning in the workplace. That's where we all should have been long ago. And I believe that there's definitely some opportunity for new and exciting learning programs, whether or not it's app-based modules, videos, all of these things now, it's much easier to produce and we're all more comfortable doing it. So like, we can sit here and produce an educational format, and we're all, the end user is now used to looking at a screen and somewhat interacting, or just point and clicking, right? So I am curious to see how the next couple of years kind of expand out in the, in the schools. But post-secondary, like, we're going to have these really big campuses that are going to be probably half, if not more, empty, right? Because they're in front of a laptop anyway. They may be in an auditorium with a professor, but realistically, they're typing so fast on their laptop that they never look up, right? So what's the point in spending $80,000 a year plus $1,200 a month if you don't live in res, right? So like, I see there being some big changes.
Well, you touched on something, and this is going to be the last one I'm going to toss at us today, because it's important for this. All of this has a huge technology component, right? We can all agree that devices help to drive this, but the innovation still starts with the human being, with the brain. Don't worry, I've used that one on purpose to set up the next subject really well, because we start to also see those things that are either superfluous to the actual process, the start, activity, and the finish of it, those things that become unimportant, or those things that need to be removed, changed, or evolved, right? From the start of calling and waiting to get a doctor's appointment, to then go in 10 days to deal with somebody face to face, and not a detraction from my doctor, busy dude. But to now it's like, I'll call and he'll call you back at 1 o'clock. I'll call at 9:30. He'll call me back at 1 o'clock. By 1:10, I'm done. And this is the last one for the day, and of course. So Matt, better sip the scotch in your water bottle, brother. Last one for the day. AI and the Internet of Things. We are watching AI make innovation in certain places, and I'm not talking Skynet or the destruction of mankind. All hail our robot overlords, right? No, what I'm referring to is the fact that AI is starting to make inroads in many of the aspects that we do. We hear right or wrong about the algorithm and the thinking that goes into Facebook and Google and these other entities where they target advertising, doing things like that. Yes, there's always a darker side and a destructive side, but there's a positive side too, which is the things you're looking for tend to show up the fastest, depending on how interactive and engaging you are with the device and everything else. This is what you would call time saving, or time or time bridges, etc., where it builds a bridge over top of something that would normally take more and more and more time. The AI also allows for us to do other things as well, like, for example, writing. We just discussed education and note taking. Well, right now, one of the best systems for transcription is inside of Google Docs, which is free. I can yell at my computer, and provided it understands the words I'm using, accuracy is in the low to high 90% range. There's an awful lot of commercial software you pay for instead, because that takes a certain amount of machine learning across the breadth of all of us yelling at our systems, which encompasses things like your Google Assistant sitting there on the desk, right? Encompasses how many other documents we've yelled at it. Encompasses data that may be getting pulled out of YouTube, etc. When you hear from enough of the same people in the same region saying the same words over and over and over again, the predictability of the technology to be able to do that, which means you're now removing the need to even type when you go to this lecture. You're removing the need to physically be there. You can shorten the process and design. We're seeing innovation, not just in advertising in the form of the bigger companies, but little companies as well. Any of the three of us can get AI right now to help us put together ads, to take stock images and graphic stuff and build interactive videos and engaging content, to build learning materials, to assist with things like programming mRNA vaccines. So AI starts to become prevalent in many different aspects. It's not there all the time. But what is Siri on our phone? If not one giant hive mind being created by Apple, where once again, it hears the same things, here's the same requests, here's the same problems. And it's really weird how we tend to find the same solutions. By the way, again, I talked about this last week, and I cannot say that it is anything but predictive, maybe not AI, but certainly predictive with the way software is trying to be helpful. The number of times that while Matt, your watch is telling you to breathe, my phone's telling me to drink water. Hey, you're supposed to drink this much in a day. You should better go get some. And with that, so AI, machine learning, and the Internet of Things, is it working the way it's supposed to? What do we think is coming next? What's going to be helpful for people?
I love it. Again, it terrifies me, but I love it. Simply because even over the past 2 years, the interaction for myself and my smart speaker has become so simple and now like casual conversation, whereas before it was all about a keyword that it would activate, right? So again, I still have to say, hey, Google, right? But now once I'm there, it's like I'm talking to somebody. And what I love about it is that if you have an adolescent or a kid account with Google, and so I have a smart house, my kids have a smart speaker in their room, it's their alarm, they can turn off their lights, turn on their lights, do whatever they need to do. But if they're polite to Google, Google kind of creates a ranking that the parents get to see. So if you say thank you to your smart speaker, you get points, you get a gold star, right? So that to me is that somebody's built that in to the system, which again, terrifying, but I like to see if my kids are being polite, and it's creating habit inside the house without, I guess, the parent having to be the parent 100% of the time. We want them to have independence. We live in a very independent world nowadays, right? So I enjoy that. And again, like I haven't touched a light fixture in my house in probably 4 years, because I just say, hey, turn off this, hey, turn on this, right? The only light fixtures I turn on are the ring lights, right? And that's because I don't have them hooked up to a smart device of some sort. So I love AI. I am terrified that, again, anytime that I talk about Costa Rica, all of my ads are now going to be for Costa Rica, right? So I understand how, I have an appreciation of how it works. So I'm wise enough to say, hey, I know it. And all I say now to my family and friends is that if you're thinking about buying something, just buy it now, because you're eventually just going to be inundated so much through your phone and through adverts and stuff. You're going to buy it anyway. You might as well just have it now. So because they're that good. Like it really is, right? So anytime that I see that there's a want, because it's certainly not a need, but if there's, a 25% off, I'm just buying it, because I know I'm going to be inundated with that product and it being placed everywhere within my devices and ad space, that I was like, might as well just buy it now. Right. So they have me. Again, I'm a sheep. And just to kind of speak to what you talked about, Mitch, about the QR code and this and that, I'm on both sides of it here, right? Because that to me is very much like we are being herded. And again, there's your conspiracy, right? Like it's very easy for us to just go beep, 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 but we don't mind it when it's at a toll booth or it's at a national park and we don't have to stop. That's a benefit.
Or at Starbucks.
Right. Like it's just I want that. Like again, this is all I bring now. I don't want to carry a big heavy phone, right? I just tap that and we're done. So we don't mind it when it's in that fashion and it's convenient for us, but then we may be told or been, herded into some sort of line, whatever it may be, then it's no longer a benefit. So we can't have it both ways.
You want to talk about learning for a moment, your kids getting gold stars. As everybody who might be listening in our live audience right now on YouTube, but certainly you two know that I'm fairly to the point. Siri has stopped answering any other way than going, when I ask her something. Hey, Siri. Oh, she's shy right now. There she is. Never mind.
Well, but they've created that, right? Because they don't want to seem like it's a computer, right? And there's been so much now where in the new Apple devices, you have to pick the voice of Siri because they don't want to have a default as a female voice anymore, right? So there's just so many things where now, like, they have us. Like, again, they have us because we're all on a computer right now. So in which way do they have us? That's up to you to decide. But we created fire, we created the microchip. I still don't understand how melted sand has created all of this, but if someone can eventually tell me how that all works. But yeah, it's been the biggest benefit to myself.
We'll have to get the IT people back on here to explain that one. That's for sure. Paul, I've been watching the expression on your face, brother, this whole time. Give it to me. What you got?
Well,
remember, we're live on YouTube, so go for it.
The Faraday cage is under construction. I will never have any of these talking devices in my house. I will put my phone in tinfoil or the microwave. I prefer not to play in these pools because, I just think there is a lot of danger with it. I try to stay away from it as much as possible. I like to pay in cash. If I have to carry 3 phones so that they can't get a beat on me, I'll do it. It goes back to the shot. I'm just not an early adopter with this stuff. I think maybe I've seen too much in my life or experienced a little bit too much in my life. And I don't like my information or things being in other people's hands. I think there has to be a counter to it. I think we can adopt it and everything, but there has to be a counter where we get to decide what they get to collect and what they don't get to collect and what they get to eavesdrop on. I think that's not fair. I think, it right now with the new technology, it's in their court. And I think there has to be a leveling of Apple was doing with their privacy, right? So I think that is the next phase that's coming, where we're going to have a little bit more understanding, a little bit more knowledge of what actually is happening, and then we can decide if we want to opt in or opt out. As far as AI, it's here, it's coming. As far as robots are concerned, they're here and they're coming. Blue jeans will be manufactured back in the United States, but they won't be by humans. They'll be by robots. So, the landscape is completely changing. One study said that in Britain alone, 30% of the population will be out of work because of AI and robotics. So we're seeing another change in, you could call it, another change in the way the economy is coming. So our government's preparing for it now. Is that why we're hearing about, universal income, where they're seeing that there will be, some unemployment, some re-education, and some movement into, new jobs, new roles that will be created. So I don't know. I'm looking at it, but I'm seeing that's the way that we're going, and I think governments are trying to find a way to adjust that blow of that transition as we move into the next economy.
So on that one, we're going to go to, and we got about 5 minutes left today. So I'm going to go to a little more like rapid fire round, and I want you guys to feel free. I'm going to drop one out there. We're going to have maybe 30 seconds to talk really quick. And this comes from a report that's put every year. It's called the Fjord Trends, and it's done by Accenture. And Accenture gets this. It does, think of it like crowdsourcing trends in business innovation, marketplaces, et cetera. And they get 2,000 plus people to weigh in on it from all over the place, from creatives to technology experts, et cetera. And they issue this report all the time. And their latest report has come out in the last little bit, and it's talking about some of these trends right now. And I want to pop them out there because this is the part where I said we're going to start with some stuff. We had some heavy lifting like AI and vaccinations, front and back end. This is more of the feel good, if you will. It always comes with a cautionary tale, But why it's relevant and important to you in business is because, one, all of us collectively are experiencing this right now, but all of us also can find some benefit or tangible. And it can be personal to us and our businesses and our families and our households, and yet it can also be expressed across marketplace. You can see it. If you're willing to stop and pause, you can see the waves in the water moving. The very first trend had to do with collective displacement. March last year happened, and it meant that all of us together had the whole floor shift under our feet, right? And now, because of that, with the help of AI technology and stuff like that, we're looking as a whole to shift that back to certain things. And the words that they're using here with this is helping people find their right place again with the right experiences. So how much of the shift in what we're doing entertainment-wise? Who here has expressed or experienced a virtual concert this year? A virtual classroom? I've seen some of my favorite artists this year sitting here in my office studio with my wife sitting in the armchair next to us here with a drink in her hand, and watch some of our favorite artists live. Paid a lot less than you would going to a concert. Paid for backstage and had intimate contact. Had the chance to talk directly with these people. It was absolutely wonderful to be able to watch. But collective displacement is one of the first trends where we watch so much moving. And that is, Paul, I love you for having brought up the rear when it came to AI and the shift in trends, because that is one of the trends that's there. And collective displacement means that as a collective, as whole, but as each of us engages or interacts inside of our business, we have to be conscientious that an awful lot moved, and however we feel about chances are a lot of others do. So we need to be conscientious and be able to look at that as well. But that's one of the trends that's happening inside of business. So any thoughts out of you guys really quick on that one?
Well, to me, it's like the retail trending, right? We have these big super malls and these big box stores, and we have all these things. And we have Amazon, and the box is literally one door click away, and I just have to reach down, right? So that, to me, I think is going to be the biggest shift, certainly. Education wise as well, who knows what the next school year is going to look like, if it's still a hybrid, if we're still in masks, all those things. So there's going to be a shift. But like, I've been speaking to, some municipality workers, some city workers, and we've got these big glass towers that we just built here locally, and they're going to be empty, because even until like their mandate is like, you don't have to return to work until 2022, right? So but like, we're working. So at any point in time, there's only going to be 20 to 30% of the workforce in the physical building, but work's still getting done. So like, that's not where I find my efficiencies. I think, I feed off the energy in the room. But again, if I'm getting 70% for a full 8 hours versus 80% for 6 hours, realistically, because again, you chit chat, you do all those things like that. That's where the efficiencies in my world has come up, because once I leave, I'm not chatting with you guys for an extra 45 minutes. I'm like, oh, well, I guess I should probably start another meeting, right? So there's a lot of that. But yeah, that's where I think the biggest shift is retail. And then, some of the city stuff is definitely going to stay virtual.
Paul, anything to add?
Accuracy, efficiency, real time, faster. Mm-hmm. That's what everything is being brought in with 5G and the Internet of Things. They're looking at real-time data and bringing everything back to a central or a dashboard and being able to communicate it effectively. So they're eliminating human error on that side, but in the short term, it eliminates that particular job.
Okay. Number 2, do-it-yourself innovation. We've touched on that already, but do-it-yourself innovation, enabling people to be a little more creative in the way they live. Anything to add?
That one's a tough one, because again, like the Home Depot, and those type of home improvement stores changed the way that tradespeople worked in that industry as a whole, right? Because now I could think I could build a fence. I'm currently building a fence. I can do it, but I can't make money at it. So again, it depends on what you're thinking of doing, right? Like Mitch, you've discussed, there's been so many corporations, registered or so many new businesses. That's great. But again, if it's a guy that like myself that has steel-toed boots and some tools and think that I can be a tradesperson, then we're in trouble with that, right? So I think that it's an interesting time to look at that. But like obviously, again, we'll kind of have to be patient and see where the landscape lands or how it looks in the next 3 to 6 months.
All right, I'm going to pick two more. We're going to close out for the day. I love this one when I saw it. Interaction Wanderlust. Joy and serendipity to the real world, to the screen. You have to admit things like AI, VR, enhanced reality, concerts are coming online. Paul mentioned Tony Robbins earlier. The experience changed. Now, has it changed where you work yet? Has it changed for you with your business? I guess that's a good question. But we're watching other places being disruptive, but starting to find different ways to engage with that. Have you had a good look at how some VR companies are staging virtual events these days? Right down to emojis on screen, virtual stages, virtual audiences. The great Tony Robbins did holograms 10 years ago, right? Interaction and wanderlust. In other words, bringing the outside world back into us right now. It's one of the trends that's coming. Thoughts from either of you on that?
A holodeck will live, I guess. is what it looks like. Will you get motion sickness? I guess we'll see. Right?
And there it is.
Exactly. I think that's just going to gain traction. How can it not? Right?
Agreed. And like, there's never been, me being somewhat of a guy's guy, like I have a large scale projector, I kind of have a theater room, and many people would say, oh my God, I can't believe you've spent the money on that. Right. Well, now they're like, oh, can we come to your place to watch X or watch Y? Right. And I even have a 3D projector, which kind of went to the way of the dinosaur. But some of the stuff is super cool. And again, like, we're living in worlds now where I just saw some of the new Windows, the IO that they have. And again, like with Apple doing all this LiDAR stuff, like the thing that is behind me virtually most likely will be somewhat real world, I think, in the next decade, if not sooner, right? Because we have to put on these big goggles right now. But, I think Google Glass was probably a decade too early, but we're all living it now. And again, like, I have a dashboard on my wrist. So yeah, it's interesting to see how it is kind of shifting focus into that space. And again, I've continuing to say, March 16th of last year, all I did was put the movie poster of WALL-E, the Pixar movie, right? And that is, they live in this virtual world in these floating wheelchairs. We're there, right? Like 90% of what I do is virtual, whether or not it's on a small screen, medium screen, or a really big screen, right? But, to speak back to what Paul was saying, like, I also firmly believe, like, Sundays, our family completely disconnects. Like, I pull the Wi-Fi, we're out in the real world without some sort of radio frequency, although it's all around us. But yeah, like, there's time and opportunity, but then there's also the time to hit pause and just go and, to teach your kids what a leaf looks like and how they look different on different trees, right? Like, there was a meme, some sort of statement put out there that today's youth can identify the top 50, go-to brands from their logo, but they can't identify the difference between poplar and spruce, right? So like, that to me is again where kind of the education is failing a little bit, right? But again, it goes back to marketing. It's not cool to teach your kid what tree is a tree.
Well, actually, let's finish up on that one, because there's a number of great apps out on the market right now, which allows you to actually hold your phone up, hold the picture up. It tells you what planet it is and all the characteristics of it as well. So the next time, maybe don't unplug 100% of the time, because it's a great learning opportunity for you. That way you don't have to remember, because after all, yes, this may be good for porn, banking, and sports, but it is also good for education, business, commerce, and medicine. There we go.
Plant Snap. Everyone should get it. It's great.
Fantastic. Brothers, as always, it is a complete pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, live audience, brothers and sisters out there, thank you for joining us at the Virtual Business Box Lunch. This is our Business in Review 6-month edition. There is, of course, a lot more subject matter that we could have got into. And like I do every week, because I'm a cruel genius and a taskmaster, I don't tell anybody that's coming to the audience what we're talking about, because I want to get the opinion of people whose insights, thought, background, and experiences lend itself very well, but to also show you that we are just people just like you. We're business owners. We are leaders, innovators, failures. We are fathers, mothers, sisters, brothers, sons, daughters, grandparents, etc. We are just people, but we're trying to bring you the very best, what our own thoughts and opinions, of course, are on this, and to make perhaps your life and your business and the rest of your week a little better on. Paul, Matt, it is a pleasure as always. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. And remember, we're on hiatus next week. Look for us in 2 weeks' time as well. We will see you guys very soon. It's a pleasure as always. We will talk to you again very, very soon. And we